home is yeah. Okay, here we go. Welcome to today's news briefing, presented and co-hosted by Ethnic Media Services and California Black Media. I'm Sandy Close, and I'll be your main moderator for today. Our issue is more days, more ways to vote. What questions do we have? And how can the Secretary of State's office help us know what questions we may not have thought to ask and need to share with our audiences? Our speaker is Joe Kocurek, Press Secretary of Secretary of State Shirley Weber, who is surely one of the great experts in this field and has helped us on many occasions as we attempt to do the best job we can to make important information on voting and the election process available. The briefing will cover essential voter resources, including Where's My Ballot sign up and tracking. Checking your voter status. How do I do that? The voter hotline and know your rights resources. Strategies to help voters plan to vote and details on voter options. And Joe said probably the number one question he gets asked is, where do I vote? Given just 10 days between now and elections, this is a great opportunity to stay informed about the tools available to ensure a smooth voting experience for our audiences. Please speak slowly, Joe, for our interpreters in Spanish, Mandarin, and Korean. And reporters, now's the time to enter your questions in the chat. We've only got about half an hour for Joe Kocurek's presentation and our questions, so ask them now. So we begin with Joe Kocurek, and we welcome you. Thank you. You're on mute, so
I'm unmuted now, yes.
okay, great.
Thank you so much, Sandy. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks everyone for being here. As you know, we're in a political environment where there's a lot of unreliable information. One of the reasons that we wanted to have a briefing is to ensure that your audiences receive accurate information. We're hoping you will help us out with that. I'm going to go through pretty basic information today, just like the nuts and bolts of voting, because we have just a little over a week and 4 days or so before the actual election day. But that said, your voters can vote now. So they can return their ballot by mail. They can drop it off at a secure Dropbox, or they can go in person, and they can go online to find out what their polling place is. We'll provide a follow-up email for some of these URLs on our website so that people have access to them fairly easily, and you can provide them to your audiences. So as far as voting, the mail, as long as your ballot, which you, of course, the person has signed the envelope for, as long as it's postmarked on election day, November 5th, and received by the 12th, it will be processed and counted. So, if people feel like their mail isn't reliable, or they're a little more concerned, they should probably do it as soon as they possibly can. They still, if they don't want to do it that way, of course, like I said, they have the in-person options, vote centers, which start opening tomorrow in VCA counties, or they can polling places, which we'll provide a URL to, and then the secure drop boxes. So we make it very easy in California for eligible voters to return their ballot. And again, I think one of the things that voters need to remember is that they need to sign the back of the envelope. Sign the back of the envelope. Because we use that to verify their identity when we receive things through the mail. I'm going to go ahead and move on and send you reference. If people need to check their voter status, they can do so online at just a second here, voterstatus.sos.ca.gov. At this point, registering to vote, you cannot do that online. You can do it in person. You can do it at a polling place, a vote center, or at the local elections official's office. You can check your voter status in case they didn't receive their ballot, or they want to check their party affiliation. But at this point, online voter registration is closed, but you can do it in person. We'll provide the URL so people can find those places where they can register, and they can vote the same day if they want to. It's conditional registration and provisional ballot, which means we will go through the same eligibility process we would do with any other voter. Your vote will be counted once we have concluded the eligibility process. Okay. I think I'll move on. One of the things that may be of interest with many of your readers is that we have voter hotlines in 10 languages. We'll provide that in the follow-up email. But the languages that people will have access to are English, Spanish, Chinese, I believe both Mandarin and Cantonese, Hindi, Japanese, Khmer, Korean, Tagalog, Thai, Vietnamese, and then we have TTY, TDD for hearing impaired voters. We also have information on our website.
Joe, could you spell out what TTY, what those abbreviations mean?
I don't know. I just know they're for hearing impaired persons. But tell you what, I'll look it up real quick, and I'm just used to referring to it that way. And we also have voter information guides in those same languages. And those are available on our webpage. Again, we'll provide the URL for that because it's important that if people, especially with the propositions, I guess with the candidates as well, that if English, they're not comfortable fully with it, that they have access to those in those same languages that I referred to. TTY is teletypewriter,
Right.
and telecommunication device for the deaf.
Got it.
I don't know actually how those
Thank you.
work.
Jessica put those into the chat. Thank you. Please.
Of course, Sandy. Another area of interest, especially in this political environment, is that California, we believe in democracy. We provide, we really work hard to ensure access, easy return of ballots, like I referred to. We have a voter bill of rights. So, if anybody feels like these are being denied, they can reach out to us. We have an email, or you can access it through our voter hotline. But, it's everything from you have a right to if you make a mistake on your ballot, you can get a new ballot. So if you're in line at 8 o'clock on election night, you can still cast your ballot at a polling place. You have a right to get help casting your ballot. The right to get election materials in a language other than English. If enough people in your voting precinct speak that language, I believe there was a question to this effect related to this, and I'll get the sort of formula for it. And there are a few others. We will provide that in the follow-up email. We'll provide the full voter bill of rights so that everybody knows what their rights are. Nobody is, nobody feels intimidated. Everybody knows that they can vote provided they're eligible in every other way. One of the things we encourage people to do is to plan how they're going to vote. So some people like to return the ballot in person. I have a friend who will not do anything but that. There are some of us who've been doing vote by mail for years. Some people who go, hey, on my way to work, I'm gonna drop it off at a Dropbox, a secure Dropbox. Apparently, research indicates that if people think about it, they'll do it. They'll think about how they're going to return their ballot. They're going to do it. And I think that's especially important for younger voters for whom everything is, taken care of on their phones. They have to think about doing something that's basically a, 19th century uh, uh, technology, returning a ballot by mail or going in person. Those are old-fashioned ways of doing things. And again, them thinking, okay, yeah, I know there's a polling place at my elementary school, or there's one at a library or police station or whatever. uh, and then think I think I have very quickly run through my topics here, Sandy.
Well, you've got a lot of questions, so
Oh
don't
boy.
have
If
that.
I can, and I'll just caveat, if I can't answer them because there are a lot of nuances in these things, I will make sure that we follow up with an email. So
That's
Sandy will,
great.
yeah.
Let's start with Martha Eskenazi from San Fernando Valley. Martha, ask your question. It's a great one.
My question is, what about people that are out of state? For example, I have a college student in Miami who is registered to vote in California. What's the timeline for him? I mean, the USPS is so unpredictable that if he were to put it in the mail, as you outlined, I'm not sure would get here on the 12th.
Oh, that's the one thing I did mention is the track your ballot thing. So um, I say, as long as it's received postmarked by the 5th and received by the 12th of November, it'll be counted.
I guess what I'm saying, it may not make it on the 12th.
That's true.
Okay.
Not because of his fault, but because the post office is so unreliable, unfortunately.
They generally are reliable. But you're right. This is okay. I won't get into that with you. Let me get back to you. Can you maybe put a specific question, and I'll take it back to her. We actually have people who deal with USPS on a daily basis. And so I can respond to, I think, a more specific question if you can provide it.
Okay.
But I have a
And by the way, you can track your ballot at Where's My Ballot? .sos.ca.gov. And your son, who's I guess in college in another state, if he mails it and he wants to know where it is in the process, he can track it that way. And then wherever he's registered to vote, and I assume it's at your residence, I guess.
Right.
He can check with the county elections official in case he gets concerned about it. Okay.
But he can go on this tracking link and find out if there's nothing with his name on it, that means it hasn't yet arrived. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Once it's received at the center, they'll get a notice. And the Where's My Ballot, they offer text, they offer a voice call or email as so that you can track it. And most of us probably prefer text. I get texts.
Okay.
So the election results we hear on November 5th, let's say midnight or early the next day, obviously don't include valid ballots that were postmarked on the 5th, but won't be counted until the 12th?
Well, until they're received. Right.
Okay.
And yeah. I mean, let's just say it doesn't mean that they have to be received by the 12th. They don't have to be counted by the 12th. So we have a 30-day vote counting process we call it the canvass. And so it just has to be received by the 12th, and then it'll be processed as soon as possible.
So Martha, obviously in such a tight election, I would urge your son to send the mail ballot ASAP. Also, I've had the experience of waiting for 2 weeks for checks I've sent media to actually arrive even in California. And I don't blame the Postal Service. I think they do a tremendous job, the individuals, but something, maybe it is 19th century technology and we're used to speed. So, okay, we have another question, important question, a couple of them from Sunita. Sunita, can you ask your question?
Sure. Thank you so much, Joe. So, if a ballot is unsigned, as you mentioned the importance of signing your ballot. If a
Yes.
ballot is unsigned and you've signed up for those text alerts, will you get a text saying to come back in and vote, or?
Yeah, and again, we default to enfranchising people. So in those cases, they will, there's a signature that isn't there or a signature that is a little different than the one, because I'm left-handed and my signature is like whatever.
Right.
It's very inconsistent. They will the elections office, your local elections office will reach out to you and attempt to cure it. That's the term they use. And so we do try to make that possible. Some people, maybe since the last time their signature was on file, they have a neurological disorder or something like that. We always want to make sure that we're not just throwing people's things out for no reason. But we reach out to that voter and attempt to rectify that.
Right. And what would our briefings be without a question from Henrietta Burrows, our most frequent questioner? Henrietta, it's important what you're asking, and please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Sandy. In the list of languages that you mentioned that are translated, I didn't hear Tongan and Samoan, and I don't usually see them in a list of languages. So are they offered?
My understanding is no. These are the statutory languages that we have, and I guess it's based on a certain percentage of folks in the state. I can find out if any of the locals offer that, but as of now, and the list that I have for both our hotline and on the materials that we provide to voters, those two languages aren't included.
But there is a large percentage of Pacific Islanders in California.
Right.
I'm sure there are.
This is, Henrietta, this is such an important issue that language access advocates have been working on to try to really assure language access and disaggregated data. As you know, we've done a number of briefings on this, so keep that in focus. I wonder if it comes down to the census and what languages. In Texas, for example, you have to represent 5% of registered voters to qualify to have an in-language ballot. I don't know, I should know since this is my home state, what that percentage is for California. But as Joe said, we'll check it out and send an answer in our follow-up email. So we have a question now from Alicia Wong. Can you ask your question, Alicia?
Hi, my name is Alicia with World Journal. So my question is how the translation on the ballot is processed so that we can make sure the translation is accurate. The World Journal is a Chinese news outlet. Thank you.
That's a good question. We do have translation vendors. It's a challenge because we're trusting a lot in the quality of the translations. We do get feedback. We do welcome feedback on those issues. But let me just say, we have a vendor and they have a quality control process for the translations. But beyond that, I'm not sure how to respond to that. But again, we have gotten responses from the language speakers on issues. Occasionally issues come up. Sometimes it's just with our advertising materials or voter information guide. I think we making a special effort for the ballot in particular.
Okay, we have a question from Vidya Saturaman. Could you, Vidya, ask your question?
Hi, Sandy. This is Vidya from India Post newspaper. So we've been reading a lot of articles and hearing in the television as well that in California, no ID cards are going to be checked during the in-person and polling booths. So can you please explain about it? And there are a lot of immigrant families who are going to vote for the first time. So what are the things they have to carry to the polling booth?
Their IDs are requested during the registration process. In California, we don't require it at the polling place unless I believe unless they are registering the same day. So that's one of those situations that we're talking about. So yeah, largely we as a state, we do not and have not required IDs at the polls. But again, when during the registration process, we require IDs, request IDs. We cross-check that with information that we have at state and federal agencies to ensure eligibility of the voter. Excuse me. I hope that's helpful, but unless there's a special circumstance with your readers, they just need to take the ballot they received in the mail and themselves to the polling place.
Hey, there, Regina, I know you have to drop off early, and I just want to ask, do you have a question you want to ask Joe?
No. I think the biggest thing is, Joe, I don't know, if, I know that we're seeing, I just got some notes and I'm seeing more and more information being shared by the local voter registrars.
Yeah.
So, I know that you guys will be working on complementing some of those, some of that messaging, but is there anything that you really like, anything else anybody else wants to say? I know that I do have to drop off early, so I'm sorry about that, but anything else that you want to, really like share with reporters in the media so that whenever they are writing about this, you know, they're able to they just know where to go. I mean, I feel like I have access, but I know that this briefing is really to make sure that the media knows that they have access to the Secretary of State's office and has a place of truth. And Joe has been very open to making sure that everyone is able to get their questions answered when they need them. So,
Right.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was
We
just going.
several more questions I want to get in before the half hour. So
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Regina, people can, there is accurate elections information on the Secretary of State's webpage. You can just go to sos.ca.gov. There'll be a carousel on the front page that you can click on, go straight to elections. So if people have questions, and it's a lot of the material I just covered here, a lot of the URLs we covered here, and including the voter information guide, which we sent out to voters, and then they'll have access to it in the languages that I referred to. But I know Sandy has some additional questions.
Right, I do. We have Solomon Smith. Can you join us to ask the first of your questions, which I think is very relevant, although Joe may not be able to answer it. It's more a question for us as journalists to follow up on. But please ask your question about the Postal Service.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Solomon Smith. I'm a freelance reporter. Regina's familiar with me. I haven't seen her in a while, but I will contact you. My question is that there's a lot of, with the recent changes in the way the Postal Service is operated, there's a lot of problems that have started in the Midwest, and a lot of people are concerned about those types of problems here. So can you explain a little bit about the timeline as for how the reporting will be, how the votes will be collected, processed, reported, tallied? Like there's a timeline that's confusing to people. Like some people think they can only vote on one day, and some people there's a lot of misinformation telling people that the voting will be collected the next day, or that online voting will only be collected certain days. Can you explain a little bit? Can you give us a little bit of those key timelines so that it's clear?
Okay, so that we don't have online voting. We will provide
Not
ballots.
online. I mean, I'm sorry, I meant mail-in voting. Mail-in voting.
Okay, mail-in vote. Okay, so the timeline, voters can put their ballot in the mail with the prepaid postage in the envelope today through November 5th, provided on the 5th that it is postmarked on the 5th. That's a huge proviso because a lot of people don't know. Usually the post office is good about it, but let's just say whether the post office will postmark it, usually happens, no guarantee. So from now until November 5th, as long as it's postmarked by that date, it will be received and counted. And the other conditions like the signature and all that apply.
And as you said,
it can be, I'm sorry, I was going to say,
and as you said, you can track it. The voter can track whether the ballot has been received.
correct. And as long as the mail-in vote is received by November 12th. So these are statutory deadlines. These are in law. Now, does that answer at least part of your question, Solomon?
It answers part of the question. My other question is not about the responsibility of the post office, just about your process and your dates and deadlines. So November 12th, it's received, and then what is the process and steps for counting the vote and collecting? Like, what are the dates for that afterwards?
So we the Secretary of State does not touch any ballots. So this is a responsibility of California elections officials. So there's what's called the canvass period. We'll have a whole briefing on that, which will basically, it's basically 4 weeks. So the county elections officials verify the ballots through the signature process, and then they're tabulated. They do an audit. They continue to receive ballots, by the 12th, and then they have to count them. And then, like I said, they do an audit, and then they report back to us. We aggregate the results, and then we certify them. I think we certify on the 12th. They send us the results by the 6th of December. So I said the 12th of December and the 6th. Okay.
Just have two more minutes, and I want to get one final question. But Solomon, those were great questions. And finding out from the Postal Service what their plans are seems to me a very important story for us to do. If you do that story, please send it to us so we can share it.
And real quick, I want to urge people that the important thing that California wants, we've set up a system that people can vote early. They're not confined to a single day. So I want you to all urge your audiences to vote early, and that'll relieve a lot of their stress, I'm sure.
We have time for two very quick questions at the end. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Selena and others, thanks for the comments. Macy Yang has a question about English-speaking interpreters who accompany voters. Could you ask your question, Macy?
Hi, good morning.
Yeah,
Can
please
you hear me? Okay.
ask your question.
So I did a coverage for similar voting in Minnesota, and they allow an escort who is English speaking to escort an LAP or limited English proficient voter at the polls. I was just wondering if California has similar ruling on something like that. Thank you.
Sandy, would you mind repeating the question?
It's a language access question. if you go to the polls and you're limited English, can you bring an English speaker with you to help you get through the language
Yeah,
issue?
my understanding is yes. The only people that you just can't bring your employer or a union member. Those are or a union what do you call them like a union representative or your employer.
Somebody who might be seen as dictating to you what you would vote as opposed to
Exactly.
translating what you want to vote. Okay, and last question goes to Eugene Levin. Eugene, could you ask your question? You're on mute, Gene. Sorry. If you're on mute, I can ask for you just because of time. If someone
If
requests,
someone requested an absentee ballot and later this person changed his or her mind, can this person vote at the polls?
wow, that's a
Uh,
question.
okay, so an absentee ballot meaning, everyone gets an absentee ballot now because
Right.
we're all
Yeah.
like a all mail sale. Yes. So if they don't, how do I put this? If they've received the ballot, sir,
Yes, yeah,
and they want to go to the polls instead, yeah,
yes,
yes, they can do that if they can bring their ballot. Um, uh, they can, they can bring if they can bring their ballot and just they can drop it off at a vote center, at a polling place, at a drop box if that's their preference.
right.
You don't have to mail. Most people do. We give everybody the option to do, but some people like to take things directly to a physical place. They like to see it dropped in that box.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm going to thank Joe for your time. Thanks so much, Joe Kocurek. And thank you above all to our media and interpreters. Thank you for asking such great questions and for being engaged. And let's wish each other as much support as possible in getting encouraging information, encouraging our audiences to vote on November 5th. Thank you very much. And this conference is closed.